Hey, and welcome to another episode of Fast Forward, a podcast from QSR Magazine. My name is Sam Okus. I'm the editor of QSR and the editorial director of Food News Media. We have made it to episode 4 of our Restaurantology series. I hope by now you've had a chance to listen to the 3 previous episodes. Episode 1, we featured R&R Barbecue President Neil Harford along with Savory Management President Shauna Smith. Episode 2, we had Mo Betta's co-founder Kimo Mack along with Swig President Chase Wardrop and Savory Management's Jessica Moyer. And then in episode 3, we featured the founder of the Crack Shack, Michael Rosen, along with the co-founders of Via 313 Pizzeria, Brandon and Zane Hunt, along with Savory Fund's Managing Director, Andrew Smith. I encourage you to go back and check out the entire archive of our Restaurantology series. You can check it out again on the Fast Forward podcast feed, wherever you listen to your podcasts. But also head to savoryfund.com/restaurantology. That's restaurantology to get all of the videos of these panel sessions. You can see us talking on that website, but you can also learn a lot more about Savory if you head to savoryfund.com/restaurantology. Speaking of Savory Fund, today I'm very excited to be talking to Savory Management President Shauna Smith once again, but we're also talking to Savory Management Vice President of Brand Development and Strategy, Alonso Castaneda. They're here to give us a little bit more information about the $100 million Savory Fund, the types of restaurant concepts that they're getting excited about these days, and how they think restaurant operators can really differentiate themselves in today's marketplace. Before we get into that episode of the Restaurantology series, though, as always, go to qsrmagazine.com for all the news and insights you need on the QSR and fast casual restaurant industries. Email me anytime you want to talk or share your perspective, sam@qsrmagazine.com. And be sure to check in tomorrow for our final installment in the Restaurantology series. We will be talking tomorrow to Andrew Smith once again, one of the general partners behind the Savory Fund, and we'll also be talking to Greg Warnock, who is the other general partner behind the Savory Fund, and they can talk a little bit more about the mergers and acquisitions market, how emerging operators can navigate the financial struggles of today, and how private equity can really be a lifeline for operators today, but also a very valuable resource for tomorrow. So now I'm going to roll into this conversation with Savory Management President Shauna Smith and Vice President Alonso Castaneda. All right, Shauna and Alonso, thank you guys so much for joining me today. Guys, let's just start by talking about Savory. What is Savory? What are you guys doing with Savory? What are your plans for this company?
Yeah, I bet you guys are wondering. We've been talking all about Savory. Who is Savory?
That's right.
So the Savory Fund is a $100 million restaurant-focused fund run by Andrew Smith and Greg Warnock. And we focus on brands 2 to 10 units. And those brands become our portfolio brands. And that's where Alonso and I come in. And we are part of the management team. And basically our job is to create value in these brands that are part of our portfolio. And I have the great fortune of leading out on this team. And it's a group of 50 plus restaurant veterans. And our goals really are around efficiency, growth, and site replication. We get to work with the brand teams, the original founders, and we basically have the fun part of the job where we get to continue executing the vision that was originally set by the founders. So I love what we get to do, and our favorite days are usually inside the restaurants, which at least those are my favorite days. What would you add to that, Alonso?
Yeah, I think, we partner with these brands and create a good foundation with them. And I love what we do because we truly get to link elbows and work shoulder to shoulder and work with their teams and help develop them as we start to scale these brands. When we are talking to new brands, they almost don't believe that we're in the field and in the kitchens and really learning their system and then helping create efficiencies. I can tell you that, like in the TV shows, I am reporting live from Houston, Texas in one of our brands. So we truly are with them shoulder to shoulder.
Alonso, there are a few people in this industry that I get to nerd out more about emerging restaurant brands. We're probably two of the only guys in this world who like geek out on emerging restaurant concepts. But you seem to be immersed in this life. You're flying around the country checking out all these concepts. How fun is it to do that?
You know what? It's fantastic. I love this industry because of the people that are in it. And I know that's very cliche and everybody says that, but I get to really work with them and be face to face with them. And we're just a fun crowd. It's a fun bunch, fun crowd. We are going through a tough year, which we are talking about this whole week, and we'll talk about some more today. But it is a great experience. I love every day of it.
That's a good segue, almost like we planned it this way. But how have things changed, right? I mean, here we are several months into the pandemic now, and I think it's clear as we've been talking about the last few days, and it's been, I mean, this is what I talk to people every single day for the last 7 or 8 months about. What is going to happen to the restaurant industry permanently? How are things going to change? So, big question, but let's just go ahead and start there. I mean, what do you guys think about this? When you're thinking about how the industry changes from here, what are you thinking about?
I think the most obvious change we've all seen is this hyper focus on safety and sanitation. So that would be, I think that's been a great change. I mean, when you learn to do better, you become better. And so it's important that messaging that we send to our customers. I don't know that we've ever told customers more frequently how often we're sanitizing tables and the handles and chairs. And normally that was something you just did on the down low, but this is now something we are announcing as like a public service announcement to our customers. We talked also a little bit about the innovation that has taken place. You know, it's like years worth of innovation that has taken place in a matter of months. And that's definitely something that has changed the restaurant industry entirely, is that technology and that innovation. I would say for us, we're seeing a huge shift from our revenue channels. We're 20% of off-premise, 20% of off-premise sales in our restaurants are now more than half of our restaurants' revenue. And that's an interesting statistic. And then even counter sales, that has gone down significantly. And not like I don't believe that counter sales are gone forever. It's only a matter of time before they return. But there's just a huge shift right now that we are all accommodating. So that's definitely something that has changed the revenue for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. To just add a little bit on what Shauna said, we're marketing all these extra precautions we're taking, but not only we're marketing to the consumer, we're also marketing to the people we want to hire and our existing team members to letting them know that we're keeping them safe as well. And then the second piece to go on the off-premise part of it is that it used to be a small percentage, and packaging is expensive. It always has. It eats into your profits. But it wasn't that big of a concern because it was a small percentage of your business. Now that it's more than half, that packaging cost eats into your profits, right? Because it's a bigger chunk of it. So a big project that we're going through our brands is getting the right packaging, and how do we give the customer the experience at home that we can do in our four walls. We can surprise and delight and truly show the essence of the brand when you're visiting us, and we can show off. How do we do that now 30 minutes after you picked up the food?
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, obviously off-premises was something that was happening already in the industry. We've been talking about this, which is that when the pandemic hit in March, already there was a big focus on delivery. A lot of restaurants were doing curbside. Certainly carry out has been a part of this industry forever, and drive-through as well. But now with such an intense focus on off-premises, it's interesting how many different things that can affect. And packaging, it's almost like you don't even think about it, but packaging becomes such a big part of this. So, okay, let's just talk about off-premises while we're on this subject, because Shauna, you mentioned that there's still demand for ordering at the counter, and certainly I think dine-in will come back, but how changed is that? I mean, how should we expect dine-in to be a lot smaller than what it used to be, off-premises to be a lot more important than what it used to be, and what are the implications of that, and what restaurateurs have to do to respond to that?
Oh yeah, I think dining is definitely going to return. it's a matter of time. I'm not certain what that timing is, but my suspicion is that third party will continue to grow even when dine-in does return, because as consumers, I feel like our most valued resource is time. And the one thing that third party has taught so many of us now is that it's a great time saver. And so I don't imagine it will be going away anytime soon. And from an operator, I think that's where I go and think about how are we executing? And that, I think, is the challenge for all of us, is how well are we executing on that third party promise? And really for us, I know Alonso and I talk about this all the time. Packaging is one of the questions, but it's how are we executing on our third party and asking ourselves very specific questions like, what's the user experience like? What is it like ordering in our app or on DoorDash or any of that? And what's the at-home experience? And little details like how is our customer able to use their loyalty points within our app? And these are the things that customers really care about. And so really taking an internal look and seeing how well we're executing, that's a big part of third party and if it's going to last.
Yeah. Something to add to third party and the consumer experience is that we talk about off-premise growth, and off-premise has grown with third party partners, but it also has grown with our online ordering experience, right? Customers just want to show up and pick it up. So the execution of that in combination with some stores, some brands having their in-store experience open. So how do you not hinder the experience of the customer that's walking in as you're building a bunch of takeout orders? So consider how do you have a second service area to create those orders so that both experiences are equal for in-store and for takeout. And then when people are showing up to pick up their order, then it should be ready to go. You just hand the order out. That's one of the benefits as a consumer of ordering ahead. And a lot of us in the industry don't think of that. We're not executing well. And sometimes you walk into a restaurant and there's a line for that takeout area where it should be, it's prepaid. You show up, give your name, take your order and go. So that should be a big focus for brands.
You guys have both said this word experience a lot. Obviously, the restaurant experience, restaurants are an experiential business, so that's important. But what's interesting is, there's the part of the experience that is convenience and accessibility, as we've been talking about, the experience of pressing a button on my phone, going to pick it up. That's an experience. But I think, you guys are especially in, fast casual. Now you're getting into full service too. You're in elevated restaurant concepts. And so experience is all the more important, right? Because it goes beyond how do you get your food to how do you create a quality experience, hospitality, things like that. What's the secret sauce? How do you in these concepts now under your portfolio, how are you focused on this high quality experience beyond simply getting food from restaurant to customer?
Well, I'll start off, but I know Alonso has some amazing comments on this. I would say first, it's about making it a priority. It is about taking those times, those moments to be honest with ourselves and asking our customers what they are experiencing, because Alonso and I and our team, we can believe that we are providing the best experience ever, but it really is about what is actually happening. And for us, we are investors. So we do invest the time and energy into learning how we are doing to create those experiences. And it starts with just making it a priority as a team, that it is about that experience, and not only for our customer, but also for our employees, because our employees are the ones executing. And if they're not having a great employee experience, then it's going to be really difficult for them to impart a good customer experience to each of our guests walking in the door.
Yeah. During the pandemic, I think the water got a little cloudy for us restaurateurs and operators because it hit and we're focused on survival, right? So, you're just, how do you keep getting revenue in, keep the doors open or not keep the doors open? How do you service outside? How do you service inside? And during that time, we lost team members. We hired new team members. Training wasn't the greatest. So we forgot to do the simple things right. So I think, a message to our restaurant colleagues out there is that refocus on your training and recalibrate, because we've hired a lot of new people during the pandemic that don't know your brand essence, our brand essence, as it was pre-COVID. So a big focus is just doing the simple things right. Go back to what the brand was, retrain on that. Don't lose that. And that's a big focus on ongoing thing that we have right now. And we have we're in this 7 months now.
Of course, the core part of the experience ultimately is the food. And, that's what brings customers in the doors originally and keeps them coming back. So one of the things I think I've kind of reflected on in the midst of the pandemic is early in the pandemic, certainly there was a big pivot toward thinking about primarily operations and service, of course, because that was how restaurants had to fight to stay alive. So much of my job before the pandemic was talking about menu trends and menu innovation, R&D. And I haven't really talked about that much for the last 7 months, because it's like you almost can't think about it when you're thinking about how do you keep your lights on? How do you run an efficient restaurant in the middle of a global pandemic? But the fact of the matter is that customers still want great food, and that's never going away. They're not going to get to a point where they're expecting worse quality food. So what do we think about how menus change from the pandemic? Where do we see menu R&D going from here? You guys have a variety of menus now kind of under you. From now you have pizza and chicken, and you have treats, and you have barbecue. So where are your heads at as it relates to menu R&D, and what have you learned from the pandemic as it relates to that?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This is a good question, because I was thinking about the other day how cauliflower was a big thing that we were all talking about pre-pandemic. I don't know if that's just me. Dates were, there were so many things that we were talking about pre-pandemic. And I think that in a way, if the pandemic has done us any good, it is that it has given us an opportunity to look at our menus and really decide on what we're good at. I think that's the biggest thing, is what on our menu is us showing off. Let's keep that. Let's focus on those things. And then let's actually decide if we want to edit or completely shed those items that are not a great reflection of who we are. So I've seen a lot of simplification in the menus, and also I would say some efficiencies that the restaurants have found. And maybe that's been in large part why, because of course we have smaller teams with the different directives. And in our kitchens, you have to have a smaller team. So how can you properly execute these recipes? So I know we've been finding efficiencies there. But then also it comes down to supply chain and what is going to be always available. There were some scares in the middle of the pandemic of some different supplies. And so for us, I know we've taken a look at what are the things that we can count on in our supply chain. And then if there are other things that we should do away with because we can't count on them, then we should probably consider what we do with those moving on. But I actually think for anyone listening, if that hasn't been something, if you haven't gone and simplified the menu, this is the opportunity to do it, because customers are absolutely willing to accept it right now. It's not going to have the shockwaves that it did pre-pandemic. So simplification of the menu is absolutely something I would challenge everyone to do.
Yeah, I would say that as far as how menus changed during COVID, Sam, one of the cool things that I've seen across the industry is that I think that's what restaurants did the best. They went in, and whether they call that menu engineering or let's take stuff off the menu, they did it really well. We have a lot of friends in the industry. We talk to a lot of restaurants, and everyone has said, you know what, since we've simplified our menu, we found that that's what makes us better. That's how we can execute faster. That's how we can keep our costs in line. We kept the things that the customers really wanted. We removed some things that we thought customers were going to complain about, and they really haven't. So they've discovered what the true menu of the brand is. Some brands have added items that just, somebody maybe on their team really liked, or somebody on their executive team, or it was just there since the beginning and it was never removed. but it wasn't really selling, and they removed it, and it simplified their operation, their labor model, and everybody still comes to those brands. So I think the restaurant industry has done a good job in simplifying that.
I'm curious for you guys. We've talked to some of the leaders at the brands and about sort of menu innovation from their standpoint too. But for you guys, again, going back to this idea that you have multiple different kind of menu categories under your watch across all of the brands, how is that going to affect your decisions moving forward in terms of the brands you partner with? Are you trying to extend out into other menu categories? And I guess I would also add, what do you see as being some of the exciting menu categories moving forward that you're keeping especially a close eye on?
I think that we always look at a brand that has great quality food. Very rarely have we said, "Ooh, let's look for chicken," or "Let's look for pizza." But we just run into great operations, great operators. There is some trends. We do have to be careful with what we look at, as far as exactly what you said. What's new, what's trending. I don't think anybody has been talking about that lately. But the brands that we do partner with are because they're loved by their community, from the founders and all the way into the organization. They have great culture, and they care about the guests, they care about the team members, and they are a successful restaurant in their communities. And that's what makes a great partner for us.
Gosh, I don't know if I could add anything to that. That was perfectly said, Alonso, and I would agree with all of that. Yeah, cauliflower probably was hot in January of 2020, but I don't know about now. I actually think, as far as a restaurant trend, I know for me, I'm paying more attention to the Indian brands and the different Asian brands. Those are what I'm drawn to these days, and I feel like that's something that more of America is wanting to see. But just like Alonso said, the brands that are really successful are the ones that are tried and true, that just continue to show up and be part of the community, providing really good food quality and great service. And I do think there's a myriad of different great foods that are doing that, and great restaurant brands that are doing that and showing up well. And so kudos to each of them.
It's interesting you say that. I've actually talked to multiple people recently who have noted this idea that because we're in pandemic and because nobody's traveling abroad, that could actually increase demand for global flavors, because people want to get that at their restaurants nearby if they can't go out and get them can't go out and get them in those actual countries. And so that's an interesting thing to think about. Maybe that'll ramp up demand for global flavors. I want to kind of break down into some of the nitty gritty of off premises, because I think obviously this being such a big focus right now, everybody's thinking through all of the things, right, as it relates to off-premises. One of the interesting things I think that has not been getting as much coverage is catering. Because, just think about how much catering was probably most impacted as far as restaurant operations go, because all these offices closed. They're not doing their catering like they used to. It's almost like it completely dried up. What are your restaurants doing as it relates to catering, and what are you seeing in terms of where that goes from here? Do we see catering coming back like it used to?
Catering was a big part of some brands, depending on their model, and it disappeared overnight. It was gone. So that part was tough. There is catering that's coming back. Social catering is still happening. You have a lot of social events that are starting to happen, and we're going after that. We're targeting social catering. And then we're promoting social distancing catering, individual packaged items. And during the pandemic, people's appetite for sweets and dessert has gone up. So there's a trend that people are requesting, sweet items in their catering, individually packed. So almost like box lunches with your dessert. And that's what we're using right now. That's what we're pushing, and it's coming back. That's going to be a slow part of the business that comes back, because of the giant corporations announcing that they won't have their employees come back till 2021, 2022. So it gets tough, right? But we're using creative ways to reach the ones that are doing it. And then talking to brand execs about if you want to send meals to your employees at home, let's do that as well for you.
Yeah, the question of will catering return? I absolutely think catering will return. It's a matter of time. I'm not certain when that will be, but there will always be a need for catering. And I had a friend literally text me yesterday who said, I was just put in charge of feeding 120 people after my grandfather's funeral. Help. And I think it's so, I mean, that was that moment where I was like, yeah, there are opportunities to continue to provide catering as a service. And it's evolved a bit, which is wise for safety reasons. You know, now we have more of a boxed meal for catering, not so much the buffet style. And I think because catering will return at this point, it's just about continuing to execute flawlessly, encouraging the teams, continuing to train the teams, and investing in just continued flawless execution, so that when catering does return, they know exactly who to call, and you've built that trust with your customers, and they'll know who they can call to count on.
Sort of related to this, this is something we talked about with Neil at R&R, but the idea that there's more bulk orders happening. There's you're thinking about things like bundles, because of course, in the midst of all of this, the other thing that's happened is dinner has really ramped up because everybody's kind of staying at home, eating around the dinner table. I've gotten sort of the general feeling from a lot of restaurant operators that, their average ticket's going up because it's more groups that are ordering. It's kind of sort of similar to the idea with catering, but I mean, what are you guys seeing with that too? And what are some opportunities as it relates to group orders, bundles, bulk orders? How do you just take advantage of this fact that people are eating more together right now, at least with their families?
Yeah, our group did really well. We've had group orders for some time, and we continue to have those available. But family meals, family packs, different brands call them different ways. Those have taken off. We implemented those probably a week into the pandemic. And as we've modified menus and made adjustments in open dining rooms, those have stayed because they remain popular. You're right. People are ordering in to eat from home as families. There's this really cool family that has this bus. They converted into a dining room, and they tag us on social media all the time, and people tag us when they're in the park, and they have our family meals. So those are definitely here to stay.
For sure. And Sam, you mentioned the shift in sales, and I know for a lot of our brands and a lot of our cohorts in the industry, we're starting to see where it used to be kind of evenly dispersed, lunch and dinner. Now we're seeing much heavier dinners. We're talking like 65% of sales coming through our dinner hours. And so that's where a lot of the priority and time and attention has also shifted to those times. And like Alonso mentioned, the family meals have been really popular for us. And I think that it's something that it's that moment when you're like, what you ask yourself, what do the people need? And that was something that they needed. And that's when that came up, was based on needs. So what is the saying? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Right. Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah. And it's really interesting to think too, if people will continue to need it. I've thought a lot about will we all have sort of a moment where we realize we like eating dinner around the table with our family, and we're going to do it more. It's interesting to think that there could be increased demand for this long term, even if we, get back to normal and there's business travel happening and people have their, activities at nighttime and all of that stuff. Okay, let's get a little bit more nitty gritty again. I want to talk about drive-through. This is a subject near and dear to my heart because for QSR, I've done the QSR drive-through study. I've written that for 10 years now. So I know way more about drive-through than I feel like I should. But it's so funny to me because about 10 years ago, when I started writing the drive-through study, I always thought that drive-through was like a dirty word for a lot of people, particularly in fast casual. There was this hesitance to ever embrace drive-through because that was seen as fast food, and fast casual just said, no, we don't do that. That's what the fast food guys do. And now, we have talked about this a little bit, but you're not going to find many drive-through locations out there because that's going to be A+ real estate. It has truly been a lifeline for a lot of restaurants through this. How do you guys view drive-through, and as it relates to the growth for your brands? Are you looking into drive-through as a part of that? But also, how do you continue to do like a high quality experience, even as it relates to if you're doing drive-through or sending food out the door, sort of protecting that you can do that with fast casual, you can do that as a high quality brand?
Well, I think first and foremost, we are opportunistic. And so when it comes to drive-through, yes, absolutely. We have considered it with all of our brands. I think that's one thing that, I don't know that we ever would have thought that you would get barbecue through a drive-through, or even Crack Shack. That's something like, would we ever consider that in a drive-through? And maybe pre-pandemic, the answer would have been no. But that is one of the things that has happened, is that our perspectives have changed, and we welcome that opportunity. For us, it's about creating that experience that we've talked about, and then also what's the best way that we are providing that experience to our customers. There's one of our brands that we have not opened the lobbies at all. We are still just operating drive-throughs because we are literally able to serve double the amount of customers through the drive-through. Our throughput is faster. So in that regard, our focus is our speed, our accuracy, and our food quality through a drive-through. And it's continuing, that brand is continuing just to grow in sales because people can drive in through the drive-through and they know they will not be there more than 10 minutes. They are in and out super quick. And I would say it's less than 10 minutes even, but they're in and out super quick, and they can count on that. And that is what they are looking for in that particular brand. I don't know that it would be the same experience if we were to send them through for barbecue in the drive-through, but we will figure out how to provide that best experience through a drive-through. So I would say, yes, we're opportunistic. Do they all need to be drive-throughs? Absolutely not. We are looking at all other ways and opportunities to keep that counter super easily accessible, and to create third-party opportunities, and to continue to make those a priority.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, I think our brands will never stop developing a brand because there's no drive-through sites, but we love drive-throughs and we're moving forward. You're right, though. There was this stigma of, oh, that's just for fast food. Is that going to cheapen our brand? And it could if you don't execute it the right way. And you do have to watch the quality of service. And it goes back to packaging. How's your food going to travel? Because when you're serving high quality ingredients, you still want them to have that experience. And then you still have to keep it fast. But we're friendly towards them. We R&R barbecue is, high end, high ticket. And we have a drive-through coming in first quarter of next year.
So I think when we think about expansion too, as talking about like on what sites you look for, I'm fascinated by what Swig is doing. I really like this idea of doing a sort of modular approach with shipping containers. It feels like you can just drop that into any old parking lot, which of course you can't do because they'd probably kick you out of your parking lot if you just did it without permission. But point is like you can really rethink space in a really interesting way right now. And so parking lots have become a part of the conversation, which is how do you take open space and create value out of that by doing a food service operation for your brands as you guys are looking at expansion. How much do you need to get creative with some of that real estate, with those real estate decisions? What does creativity look like with real estate now? I mean, what's the real estate situation going to be after all this?
Well, I would say, yes, being modular is probably one of the things that we absolutely have to do with all of our brands, just being able to consider a small amount of square feet or a large amount of square feet. And it just, the gamut in all of our brands, it just ranges. But when I think about Swig and what we've done with the modular units, That's been a super interesting journey, and it has created so many opportunities in the real estate piece because while I do want to make sure that the modular units are not necessarily less expensive to build. For anyone listening, I think that was one of our assumptions, and I just want to get that out there just so that it's not anything that would be a surprise for anyone. They're not inexpensive, but what it does do is it creates opportunity where there was not opportunity. And so we are able to go on these corners that are the busiest intersections in the whole town or in a city, and they're grocery store parking lots. And we take a small corner, and all of a sudden you have a line off to the road and down the road even. And so I do think that for anyone, it's just about thinking outside of the box, how to create opportunity that is not currently there. And that was something that we were looking at. We were, driving in parking lots. Like, why couldn't we put a swig right there in that corner? And then as we started to go down that path of, well, how could we go about that? And then you start talking to different people, and then it's like, well, these modular units are the way to go. So where we used to have these full restaurants with lobbies and really beautiful restaurants where customers could walk in, now we have these modular units where there's only a walk-up window or a drive-through window. There's no lobby at all. There's no seating at all. It's just all to go. So yeah, I think that's something that has really been exciting and interesting for us, and reusing those containers. That's been a super fun journey.
Yeah, last piece I can add to that was just, we are opportunistic, and if it makes sense for the brand, not every brand can do that, but we do adapt to different sites. We have our Mobetta's brand is going into a unit that has a walk-up counter and drive-through, but no seating. So we're going that direction as well. It wouldn't make sense for other brands to do that, but it fits within the brand and the consumer for Mobetta's.
I think too, there's an idea of sort of real estate as it relates to proximity to the customer. So that what's interesting is that that's sort of been flipped on its head now with delivery. Of course, you can kind of get food across town. And the whole digital experience has sort of changed the relationship with a restaurant. We've kind of talked a little bit about through this conversation, but I do want to touch on sort of the digital sort of operations of everything. How much are you guys looking at digital as being kind of an important part of your brands? How can you leverage that to sort of further push the brands, get them to expanding into new markets, but especially how do you use digital to really engage with the guests?
We are all on, technology and making it easier for the consumer to order whichever way they can from us. And I think that a lot of chains are doing that. And we're very aware. We're looking at multiple options, different revenue streams. There is, since the pandemic, right, technology for restaurants just accelerated. And there's all these options. Now the trick is to make all of your systems talk to each other, so it doesn't make for a bad experience. So we're looking at all these options. As long as we can create a frictionless experience for the customer, we're moving forward with digital drive-thrus, curbside pickup, ordering through Facebook Messenger, text message. All of those ways, we're open to that, and working on some of those items as well.
I agree with Alonso. We're always working to just expand and continue to smooth out that customer experience. And what I have noticed and learned is that there is a technology for everything. And if you want it done, there's a technology for it. And Alonso and I talk often with our team about not necessarily having to engage every technology option out there. It's about choosing which one best suits you and your brands, and really following through on those, and just executing as well as you can using those technologies. It could be very easy to spend all of your extra dollars on different technologies to give you all the answers in the world, but what you really need is only a few key pieces of technology that help you with your day-to-day execution.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's going to be especially relevant moving into the future. I know that there's just been a lot of tech innovation, even just during the pandemic. There's a lot more to come. We're starting to talk about things like robots, AI, stuff like that. Innovation in general. There's going to be a lot of tools at restaurateurs' disposal, but of course, I think that could complicate things because there's going to be a lot of options out there. So, sort of a good thing and a bad thing. Kind of bringing this home. Last question for you guys. Considering all of this, considering everything going on in the restaurant industry, what would you recommend restaurateurs do right now? What's the thing they should be focused on right now to set up their business for success? Looking at, say we get on the other side of the pandemic within the next, let's just say 5-6 months, to set themselves up for success on the other side of this thing, what should they be doing right now?
This is a time when I would say to think like an investor and ask yourself what parts of the business do I need to polish up a little bit? Are there systems that we need to polish? Are there different humans that we need to polish? Are there different technologies and different, I would say, your balance sheet, what needs to be polished there? And address those issues quickly, because I think that right now I've heard a lot of people talking about growth, and the one thing I know is you cannot grow or scale an unpolished business. All that does is create bigger problems for you to address. So the best thing that anyone could do right now is polish what they currently have going on and prepare it for growth and to be opportunistic in the coming years, but really focusing in on making sure those balance sheets are shored up and making sure that you're profitable. I mean, how simple is that? If your business is on fire and you're not profitable, you need to focus on that.
Yeah. What I want to add to that, as far as, what the brands can do in this landscape, I'm going to go back to the pandemic has been here for 7 months. That's enough time to create new habits for the consumer, for our managers, for our employees. So go back. We have I've been saying that our restaurants have COVID goggles, right? We have COVID goggles. We need to take those off. Just because we're open 50% capacity doesn't mean that it's okay to give 50% of the quality of service, 50% of the quality of food. Let's go back to what we do good and give 100% of the service. Watch that quality. Go back to training. That's one piece of advice. The other one is that what Shauna said, make your brand more profitable. We love our third-party partners. We have great relationships. Those can be very costly, so you have to be careful what makes sense for your brand. But we also have an initiative of converting our customers from third-party into our own online ordering systems because that's less expensive for us. So although DSPs, they have services that you can white label and you can do direct delivery through your platforms, and that's one other partnership that you can do with them. But the more customers you can convert to your online ordering mediums and capture that database and market them, the better it is for future growth and retargeting them and then being more profitable.
That's great. That's good stuff. Guys, lots of actionable insights here for restaurant operators. So thank you both so much for sharing these insights. I really appreciate it.
This has been fun, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care.
Always a good time. Thank you.
There you have it. That was my conversation with Savory Management President Shauna Smith, along with Savory Management Vice President of Brand Development and Strategy, Alonso Castaneda. We're 4 episodes in. We've got one more. Again, tomorrow we'll be rolling out episode 5, the final episode in the Restaurantology series, featuring Savory Fund General Partners Andrew Smith and Greg Warnock, talking all about the financial state of things, the M&A market, and much, much more. If you haven't gotten a chance to catch up on all the episodes, please, I encourage you again to go to the Fast Forward podcast feed, which you can listen to wherever you listen to your podcasts, but also go to savoryfund.com/restaurantology, restaurant OLOGY. You can get more information about Savory Fund, but also you can check out the entire video archive of these Restaurantology video series. We'll talk to you tomorrow.